The billionaire invited his former lover to his wedding, intending to humiliate her in front of the wealth and spectacle he had amassed. But he was stunned when she arrived with a boy who was the spitting image of him. His confidence shifted quickly into discomfort. Who was this child? Before diving into this emotional reveal, make sure to follow the page for more stories like this. The late autumn light slanted through the tall windows of the CEO's suite on the 39th floor of the Pacific Financial Center in San Francisco. Lucas Hartley, 41, stood with his back to the room, surveying the sprawling cityscape while absently spinning a sleek Parker pen in his hand. Reflected in the window was the image of a man with angular features, jet black hair neatly styled, and a bespoke charcoal suit tailored in Milan that rivaled the price of most sports cars. "Mr. Hartley, Miss Whitaker is also on the line," came the voice of his assistant over the intercom. "Thanks, Janelle," he said, pressing the call button and lifting the receiver. "Rebecca, darling," he greeted. "Lucas, you won't believe this," she said, animated. "I just met with the florist, and he pitched something incredible for the main lobby entrance. Picture a waterfall of white Himalayan lilies cascading from the ceiling, each with individual uplighting. It'll be breathtaking for our celestial garden theme." Lucas chuckled, knowing how extravagant such a design would be. "It sounds stunning, Rebecca. I trust your instincts." "Oh, and about the guest list," Rebecca's tone shifted. "We really need to lock it in today. The stationery team starts working on the engraved invites tomorrow." Lucas's smile faded just slightly. "Now or never. There's one more name I want to include." "Another one? I thought we agreed on a 400-person limit." "It's someone from a long time ago, Madeline Brooks." The silence on the other end was thick. Rebecca Whitaker wasn't oblivious. As the sole heiress to the Whitaker biotech fortune, she had long learned how to interpret silence. "Madeline Brooks? Your ex from university?" Her voice remained composed, but Lucas could tell exactly what that tone meant. "Yes, I think it's appropriate to include her." "Appropriate?" Rebecca gave a dry laugh. "Lucas, there's nothing appropriate about inviting an ex." Lucas shut his eyes, recalling the moment he saw Madeline's byline in a San Jose Tribune feature. The sensation had struck him like a steel fist to the chest. He had been mid-call with investors when the article popped up on his feed. For a moment, he couldn't hear the voices on the line, couldn't remember what deal they were finalizing. The room spun slightly. All the years, all the distance, yet her name still carried the weight to knock the air out of him. It had been 16 years since he chose an executive role in Hong Kong over a future with her. 16 years spent constructing an empire, amassing respect, building dominance, and now, standing on the brink of marrying one of California's most admired women. "I want her to see," he finally said, his voice quieter now. "I want her to see what I've become." Rebecca didn't respond immediately, and when she did, her tone had shifted, less confrontational, more pensive. "You still think about her?" "It's not that," Lucas answered hastily, perhaps too hastily. "It's about closure. Confirmation I made the right call." "Fine," Rebecca breathed. "Put her on the list. But Lucas, if this is really about proving something, maybe we should reconsider the timing of the wedding." "Rebecca, don't exaggerate. It's just a name on a list." "If you say so," she muttered, the chill returning to her voice. "I have to go. I'm due to meet with the pastry chef about the dessert menu." The line went dead, leaving Lucas engulfed in quiet contemplation. He returned to his walnut-paneled desk and pulled open the lowest drawer. Tucked beneath confidential agreements and acquisition proposals was an old, weathered envelope. Inside was a photograph. He and Madeline captured in a sunlit moment during their last summer, standing in front of Stanford's old chemistry building. Young, full of promise, and utterly unaware of the roads ahead. Janelle stepped into the office, carrying a stack of reports. "Mr. Hartley, the board is assembled in the strategy room. Also, Ms. Reiner from the events agency called about the dessert tasting." "Janelle," Lucas said, his eyes still fixed on the photograph. "I need you to track down an address for me. Madeline Brooks. She writes for the San Jose Tribune." "Certainly, sir. Anything else?" Lucas slid the photo back into its envelope. "Yes, once you find her address, send her one of our premium invitations, the ones in the crystal-embellished box." As Janelle left, Lucas grabbed his phone and opened the browser. He typed, "Madeline Brooks, San Jose Tribune," and began skimming her latest columns. Every sentence felt oddly familiar, despite the years. Her way with language, her clear logic, her incisive commentary, none of it had changed. The intercom buzzed again. "Mr. Hartley, I located Miss Brooks's address. She's in Palo Alto, not far from Stanford." Lucas's heart ticked faster. "Perfect. Send it out today." "One more thing, sir," Janelle said, pausing. "While looking her up, I found something. She has a child. Should I include a +1 on the invite?" Time seemed to momentarily freeze. "A child?" "Yes, sir. A boy. He's been photographed with her at several community events." Lucas adjusted his collar, feeling suddenly constricted. "Yes, include the +1. And Janelle, see what else you can learn about the child." That evening, driving his Porsche Panamera through the winding hills back to his penthouse overlooking the bay, Lucas couldn't shake the thoughts swirling in his mind about Madeline and her son. 16 years was more than enough to start an entirely different life. She was probably married by now, perhaps to an academic or a fellow writer. The sort of life Lucas had once dismissed as far too modest for his ambitions. His phone rang. It was Rebecca again. "We still need to talk about Madeline," she said, skipping any pleasantries. "I thought we already handled that." "Lucas, you're about to marry me. I need to know, are there things I don't know about this?" He pulled over, gazing at the twinkling lights of the city through the windshield. "Rebecca, you're reading too much into this. That was 16 years ago. She might not even show up, and if she does..." His words drifted. The silence that followed felt thick and uncertain. Lucas didn't respond. Maybe he couldn't. Maybe the answer scared him too much. "The invite's been sent," he said at last. "Let's stay focused on the wedding. We've still got dinner with your parents Saturday, remember?" Rebecca exhaled. "Yes, at 7. At Rosary. Don't be late." As he stepped into his penthouse, Lucas found himself reflecting on how meticulously calculated his life had become, like a strategic game. Marrying Rebecca wasn't just personal, it was tactical. She was poised, connected, and her family's legacy came with influence even his billions couldn't buy. It all fit the blueprint. So why did adding Madeline to the guest list feel like he'd upended the entire board? At the Grand Monterey Hotel, final touches were being made for what was billed as the wedding of the season. Just as Rebecca had envisioned, a cascade of white Himalayan lilies poured from the grand lobby ceiling, casting a surreal beauty across the venue. Lucas stood at the window of the penthouse suite, watching the event team glide across the floors below, moving with polished urgency. "Mr. Hartley?" Janelle knocked and entered, tablet in hand. The finalized RSVP list just came in. Lucas adjusted the knot on his Italian silk tie in front of the mirror. "Madeline Brooks confirmed her attendance. She's bringing a guest," Janelle noted. In the mirror, Lucas noticed a faint tremble in his hands. "All right, anything else?" Janelle hesitated, her grip tightening slightly on the tablet. "Sir, regarding the background check you requested." She paused, carefully measuring her words. "Miss Brooks's son, Elijah B. He's 8 years old." Lucas froze. His thoughts scrambled for the timeline. 8 years. He had left Silicon Valley 16 years ago, but he had returned once, 9 years back, for an investor summit. That night, his stomach clenched. A dull pressure began to build behind his ribs, spreading upward. Not panic, not yet, but something close. The breath he took barely made it past his chest. "Janelle, I need you to." "Lucas?" Rebecca had stepped into the suite, radiant in her champagne-colored silk robe. "Can we have a moment, alone?" Janelle gave a curtsy and exited, setting the tablet gently on the nearby console. Rebecca waited until the door clicked shut before she spoke, her voice even. "I saw the updated guest list," she said. "Madeline Brooks is actually coming. Rebecca, this isn't the right time." "No, Lucas, we are talking about this now." She took a step closer, her gaze steady and unyielding. "Because I just uncovered something about your past with her. Something you should have told me," Rebecca said firmly. Lucas felt his pulse spike. "What do you mean?" "That night, 9 years ago, when you flew back for the M3 Ventures board meeting." Rebecca folded her arms. "You saw her then, didn't you?" The memory crashed into him like surf breaking over rocks. The lounge bar at the St. Regis. Madeline seated at the corner alone, their eyes meeting in the dim glow, conversations stretching into the night. Laughter, the wine. "And then, it was just one night," he said softly, "and you never reached out again?" No. The single word landed heavy. I flew back to Shanghai the next morning. We had that major acquisition lined up. Rebecca gave a dry, bitter chuckle. Unbelievable, Lucas. You really have no clue, do you? Before he could answer, commotion stirred in the hallway, voices rising just outside the suite. Ma'am, I'm sorry, you can't just… Janelle's voice came through, tense and urgent. The door flung open with force. And there she stood, Madeline Brooks. A little older than he remembered, but unmistakably her. The same piercing determination in her eyes that had captivated him all those years ago. Beside her was a boy. Lucas's breath caught in his throat. The child looked like a mirror image of himself at that age. The same deep-set eyes, the defined chin, even the slight wrinkle between the brows when confused. Madeline, he said, almost a whisper. Hello, Lucas, she responded, her tone steady and composed despite the stormy atmosphere. I believe it's time you met your son. Rebecca let out a humorless laugh. Well, that puts a few things in perspective. She turned sharply to Lucas. Did you know? No, he replied, eyes locked on the child. I had no idea. I tried, Madeline said, stepping forward. After that night, I called your office, sent emails, even wrote to your assistant. But you were too caught up in that merger in Shanghai, weren't you? Elijah glanced up, his eyes flicking nervously between the three adults. It's okay, Mom, he said gently. Madeline placed a calming hand on her son's shoulder. Remember what we discussed in the car? The boy nodded. His eyes, Lucas's eyes, carefully examined the man standing before him. Are you my dad? He asked. The simplicity of the question struck Lucas like a collapsing building. Images of his own fatherless youth surged back. School assemblies attended alone, weekend soccer matches with no cheers from the sidelines, nights filled with longing for someone who never came. Yes, he managed to say, his voice cracking. I am. Okay, Elijah replied with a shrug, though Lucas noticed how tightly he clung to Madeline's hand. Do you have a Nintendo? A strangled sound broke the silence. Rebecca stood near the far wall, tears streaming silently down her flawless face, ruining nothing, yet unraveling everything. Rebecca, Lucas started. Don't. She lifted one hand, stopping him cold. Don't even try. Then she turned sharply toward Janelle Pursley, who remained frozen by the door. Call it off. All of it. Miss Whitaker, there are 400 guests downstairs. I said cancel it. Rebecca snapped, then took a long breath, steadying herself. And call my parents. Let them know. There's been a personal emergency. Madeline took a step forward. Rebecca, I didn't come here to ruin anything. No, Rebecca interrupted. Don't apologize. You're doing exactly what you should have done 9 years ago. Her eyes shifted to Lucas. Sharp as broken glass. And you? I hope hiding the truth was worth it. With that, she exited the suite, leaving a silence that seemed to swallow the air. Lucas loosened his tie, suddenly overwhelmed by a tightening in his chest. Elijah, Madeline said softly, how about going with Janelle to the lounge downstairs? I heard they make the best banana smoothies in the city. The boy hesitated. But we just met. I know, honey. But Mommy needs a minute alone with your dad. It won't be long, I promise. Janelle extended her hand gently. Elijah glanced once more at Lucas before taking it and walking out. Once the door closed, Madeline turned to face him. I didn't come here to destroy your wedding. Then why now? He asked. Because Elijah began asking things I couldn't explain by myself anymore. She reached into her handbag and pulled out a worn photograph. He came across this a few weeks ago. Lucas knew it immediately. It was the same snapshot he'd kept tucked away. He and Madeline during their Stanford years. He's brilliant, Madeline said, her voice warm. Like you were, obsessed with understanding how everything works. He saw the photo and started digging, found your old interviews, your keynote speeches. He's the one who insisted we come today. Why didn't you reach out to me sooner? Reach out when, Lucas? Her voice caught. When you vanished to Shanghai without so much as a goodbye? Or after that night, when I called, messaged, tried everything, and got silence? Lucas sank into a nearby chair, the weight of everything collapsing onto his shoulders. I was building something massive. I couldn't afford any distractions. Distractions? Madeline let out a hollow laugh. Is that what you call family now? A distraction? No, I honestly don't even know anymore. He buried his face in his hands. When you both walked into that room, it felt like everything I thought I knew just collapsed. Welcome to my reality for the last 9 years. She eased into the seat across from him. Elijah is an extraordinary boy, Lucas. He deserves to know who his father is. Even if that man once chose ambition and prestige over love and responsibility. Each word cut deep. What do you want from me, Madeline? From me? Nothing. But Elijah, he deserves the chance to have a father, if you're ready. If you want to be something more than the man with a high-rise view in an international boardroom. The silence was punctured by faint voices outside. Guests being informed that the wedding had been called off. Lucas could already hear the fallout. The questions, the whispers, the scandal that would echo in every elite social circle. What's he like? The words left him before he could second-guess them. A gentle smile formed on Madeline's lips. He's obsessed with the stars, has a telescope in his room and can name the constellations, she continued. He plays in the Little League as a pitcher, just like you once did. He hates green beans, but could eat a whole pizza by himself if it's pepperoni. He pretends thunderstorms don't scare him, but I still find him curled up with his flashlight when they get loud. She stopped, emotions tightening in her throat. And he asks about you. He's always asked. Lucas felt something inside him unravel. Maybe his ego, maybe the carefully constructed facade he had maintained for years. I want to meet him, he finally said. Really meet him, not just as some twist at a cancelled wedding. Are you sure? Madeline asked softly. Because this isn't something you can disappear from the moment another international deal hits your desk. I'm sure, he said. And for the first time in years, Lucas felt like he actually meant every word. Just then, Elijah re-entered the suite, clutching a half-empty chocolate smoothie. Mom, did you know there's a giant chocolate fountain down in the kitchen? Is that so? Madeline smiled. Yeah, and Janelle said we can eat as much chocolate as we want because... He paused, catching himself mid-sentence. Because the wedding's been cancelled, Lucas finished quietly. Elijah, I was hoping we could talk, if you'd be okay with that. The boy looked up at his mother, who gave a soft nod of encouragement. About what? Well, for starters, tell me about your telescope. Elijah's face lit up. It's a Celestron Nexstar 8 SE. I can see Saturn's rings through it. And last week, I even spotted Jupiter's moons. As Elijah animatedly described his stargazing adventures, Lucas felt something unfamiliar spread across his face. A smile that wasn't rehearsed or refined for media appearances, but genuine. A smile he hadn't felt in what seemed like forever. Meanwhile, several floors below, in the gilded ballroom of the Grand Monterey Hotel, chaos quietly unraveled. 400 guests, among the West Coast's most powerful and affluent, buzzed with speculation as hotel staff began discreetly removing the lavish arrangements. The cascade of white Himalayan lilies, still radiant in their soft glow, appeared to observe the unraveling scene with quiet mockery. From the upper mezzanine that overlooked the ballroom, Gregory Whitaker, Rebecca's father and chairman of Whitaker Biotech, paced furiously while barking into his phone. I don't care what you need to do. Contain this. We can't let the media spin this into a scandal. Not far from him, his wife Evelyn plucked 2 champagne flutes from a passing tray. Her eyes, green and piercing like Rebecca's, swept across the room like a commander evaluating a battlefield. Back in the penthouse suite, now converted into a tense makeshift headquarters, Lucas stood on the edge of a choice that would redefine his world and the futures of those closest to him. Elijah lay curled up on one of the plush sofas, finally asleep after a day charged with emotion. Madeline sat nearby, occasionally smoothing a hand gently over his hair. Lucas pressed his fingers to his temple, trying to will away the dull throb that had settled behind his eyes. It wasn't just exhaustion, it was the culmination of 3 nights without real sleep, back-to-back meetings, and the weight of everything crashing down. He walked to the minibar, grabbed a glass, but poured only water. His hand trembled slightly as he lifted it to his lips. Madeline noticed, her brows tightening, but said nothing. He had skipped meals, avoided his medication. Hell, he wasn't even sure when he last ate something solid. It wasn't noble, just stupid. But for now he needed to stay upright, just a little longer, he told himself. Just until this is done. Mr. Hartley? Janelle stepped in quietly. The Whitaker family attorneys are outside. They say we need to review the prenup terms and discuss potential consequences of today's. Lucas glanced at Elijah, then at Madeline. And in that stillness, something shifted within him, like a long misaligned gear finally locking into place. "Janelle," he said with calm resolve, "call Marcus. Your attorney?" "Yes. And start drafting a statement for the press. I'm giving a formal announcement." Madeline's eyes widened. "Lucas, you don't have to." "I do," he said gently, cutting her off. "For the first time in a long time, I actually want to." 15 minutes later, Marcus entered. His perfectly pressed navy suit looked out of sync with the unease on his face. "Lucas, for God's sake, what is happening? I've got 4 missed calls from the Whitakers." Marcus halted mid-sentence when he spotted Elijah fast asleep on the couch, Madeline sitting quietly by his side. His expression shifted from urgency to realization. "Oh, Marcus, I need you to draw up some papers," Lucas said softly, careful not to disturb Elijah's rest. "First, I want legal recognition of Elijah as my son. Then establish a trust in his name. And finally," he inhaled deeply, "I want to resign as CEO of Hartley International." Madeline and Marcus both said in unison. Marcus recovered first. "Lucas, you created this empire from nothing. It's your name, your legacy." "No," Lucas said, eyes still on Elijah. "He's my legacy. The company, that was about trying to outdo a man who disappeared on me when I needed him most. It was about winning. But now," a faint, bittersweet smile crossed his face, "now I see I was becoming the very person I resented." Madeline stood slowly, stepping closer to him. "You don't have to walk away from everything." "I'm not walking away," Lucas said, his voice steady. "I'm finally walking toward something. Something real." They were interrupted by the soft creak of the door. Rebecca entered, still in her silk robe, eyes puffy, hair tousled from stress and tears. "So that's it?" she said, voice breaking slightly. "All these years of building together, and now you're giving it up for a kid you didn't even know until today?" Lucas moved toward her, taking her hands gently in his. "Rebecca, we didn't really build something together. We built things next to each other. You with your vision, me with mine. It looked seamless from the outside, but it was never love." "How dare you?" she cried, yanking her hands away. "I loved you." "No, you loved the image of me, the global CEO, the self-made mogul, the ideal headline for the financial press. But Rebecca, when was the last time we spoke about anything that wasn't profit margins or public appearances?" Tears streamed unchecked down her face. "Don't do this, Lucas. Think about the fallout, the shareholders, the empire we built." "That's exactly what I'm thinking about," he said softly. "I'm thinking about finally building something real." A quiet rustle from the sofa pulled everyone's focus. Elijah stirred, blinking as he rubbed his eyes. "Mom? I'm right here, baby," Madeline said gently. Rebecca glanced at the child, then back at Lucas, and then turned to Madeline. Something subtle shifted in her face, as if a long-held performance had ended. "You know," she said, voice calmer now, "I always sensed it, that there was someone or something he had never let go of. A wound he dressed up in ambition. I thought I could erase it, with time, wealth, influence." She gave a hollow, humorless laugh. "What a fool I've been." "Rebecca," Madeline started, but Rebecca cut her off. "Save it. I don't need your sympathy or your apology." She turned back to Lucas. "Go ahead, make your speech, claim your son, step down from your throne. But just know, once the excitement dies down and reality kicks in, you'll remember everything you've just thrown away." With that, Rebecca turned and left the suite, closing the door on the moment with an echoing finality. Elijah, now fully awake, looked from face to face. "Is everything okay?" he asked. Lucas stepped forward and knelt in front of his son. "It will be," he said gently. "I promise." Marcus cleared his throat from the corner. "Lucas, if you're going through with this, we need to move fast. The media's already buzzing, and the market's open soon." "Understood," Lucas nodded. "Get everything prepared." "I'll speak in." He checked his watch. "Half an hour." "Are you certain?" Madeline asked softly. "I've never been more certain of anything," he said. But Madeline's hands were clenched in her lap, nails pressing into skin. The sheer scale of the suite, the way Janelle barked instructions like a strategist, and the fast-paced rhythm of decisions made her feel like an outsider watching from behind glass. She wasn't part of this world. The tailored suits, the legacy names, the power that pulsed in quiet gestures. For a brief second, she wondered if this moment, this choice Lucas was making, would one day turn into resentment. If he might wake up and see her as the woman who cost him everything, polished and pristine. She didn't say it, but the fear pressed against her ribs like something solid. The next 30 minutes moved in a blur. Janelle coordinated the transformation of the ballroom into a temporary press briefing room. Marcus finalized the statement. The communications team sprang into action, phones pressed to ears, emails flying. Elijah, seated between Lucas and Madeline on a nearby couch, glanced up from his tablet. "Is it okay if I play Minecraft while you're talking?" Lucas chuckled. "Of course, but how about we grab some ice cream? I know a great little spot by Stanford." Elijah's face brightened. "Can we visit Dr. Singh too? He runs the robotics lab. He let me program one of the bots last time." Lucas turned to Madeline, surprised. "Professor Singh," she explained. "Elijah's in a mentorship program with the university's engineering department. Turns out being in the top 1% comes with some unexpected benefits." A swell of pride surged through Lucas so intensely it nearly took his breath away. His son was already part of a robotics mentorship at Stanford. It was more than he could have imagined. "Mr. Hartley," Janelle appeared at the door. "They're ready for you." Lucas rose, straightening his suit. Madeline reached out, briefly touching his hand. "Good luck." He gave her hand a small, grateful squeeze, then stepped toward the podium. The flash of cameras hit him like a stage light, and for the first time in his career, Lucas Hartley felt a bead of sweat gather in his palm. "Good evening," he began, his voice clear but earnest. "Today was meant to mark the beginning of my marriage. Instead, it became the day I finally grasped the meaning of family and of taking true responsibility." His eyes landed on Elijah and Madeline. "Today, I learned I have a son, a remarkable, curious, and bright young boy who has spent the last 9 years. He paused. His gaze met Madeline's, and for a brief second something passed between them, quiet and real, a flicker of what once was. "Mr. Hartley," a reporter called out, "is it true the Whitaker family is preparing legal action for breach of engagement and reputational damage? Any comment?" Suddenly, Gregory Whitaker stood from his front row seat and approached the podium. The air in the room thickened with tension. The two men stood face to face. "My daughter," Gregory said, each word resonating with the gravity of legacy and reputation, "was ready to become your wife. Our families were poised to merge at the highest level. But now—" He paused, letting the silence sharpen his words. "Now, I realize we've dodged a far worse fate, seeing your true character revealed before the papers were signed." Lucas stood tall, meeting the older man's eyes without flinching. "Mr. Whitaker, I have deep respect for your family, and especially for your daughter. That's why I couldn't proceed with something that wasn't built on truth." Gregory gave a cold, almost amused laugh. "Truth? You preach integrity after hiding a child for nearly a decade?" "I didn't hide him," Lucas said calmly. "I didn't know. But now that I do, I'm doing what any real man should, owning up to it." Toward the back, Elijah shifted awkwardly in his seat. Madeline leaned in and whispered something to him that eased the tension in his small shoulders. Gregory watched the scene for a moment, then turned back to Lucas. "You've just destroyed everything you've built." Lucas offered a faint smile. "No, I just started building something that actually matters." The murmurs among the crowd surged again, no longer confusion or outrage, but a hum of curiosity and maybe even admiration. Marcus quickly stepped forward to the microphone. "That will be all for now," he said. Security moved in to usher the media from the space. Lucas walked back to where Madeline and Elijah were waiting. "Still up for that ice cream?" he asked Elijah. The boy lit up, his grin unmistakably inherited. "Can we visit the robotics lab afterward?" "Absolutely," Lucas said, glancing at Madeline. "If your mom says yes." She smiled, eyes glistening. "I think we've all earned some ice cream today." Together, they exited quietly through a side entrance, slipping away from the flashes and noise into a future no longer built on appearances, but something real. As they climbed into the car, Lucas felt his phone vibrating relentlessly in his pocket, undoubtedly flooded with messages from investors, board members, and journalists. For the first time in his life, he powered it off. "You know," Elijah said as the car pulled away, "my classmates are never going to believe me when I say my dad is famous." Lucas chuckled, a warmth bubbling up inside him that no IPO or acquisition had ever delivered. "How about we get to know each other first? Fame can wait." Madeline smiled. "He's right, sweetheart. You two have some serious catching up to do." But as the laughter faded, Lucas turned to glance at Elijah. Really, look. There was admiration in the boy's eyes, expectation, and it made something twist in Lucas's chest. What if he couldn't live up to it? What if, stripped of his empire and titles, he wasn't enough? This boy deserved more than a man learning late how to be a father. The thought stayed with him, quiet and sharp, even as he reached over and gently squeezed Elijah's hand. And as the car turned away from the Grand Monterey Hotel, leaving behind the media frenzy, the lilies, and the past, Lucas Hartley stepped into something unfamiliar. A life with meaning. A life with connection. A life with family. The end. Behind the reporters and beneath the cascading white lilies, Lucas realized this wasn't just a change in direction. It was the beginning of his life. The first rays of morning sun slipped through the windows of the temporary home office Lucas had set up in his modest Palo Alto apartment. After stepping down from his position, he'd moved out of the glass and steel San Francisco penthouse to be closer to Elijah. The walls, once lined with awards and abstract paintings, now held colorful posters of planets, circuitry sketches, and robot doodles, courtesy of his son. Mr. Hartley, Janelle's voice came through the intercom. Though he no longer ran a corporation, she had chosen to stay on, helping him manage the essentials of his new life. Elijah's here for breakfast. Lucas smiled and set aside the papers he had been reviewing. In the past few weeks, he and Elijah had settled into a routine. Wednesday and Friday breakfast before school. A small start, but one that meant everything. Dad! Elijah burst into the office with his Stanford backpack. You won't believe what happened in the lab yesterday. Good morning to you too, champ. Lucas laughed, pulling him into a quick hug. Where's your mom? Here, Madeline said, stepping into the doorway with a folder in hand. Elijah, show your dad what you brought. With eyes shining, Elijah pulled out a small device. It's a prototype for a Mars rover. Dr. Singh helped me with the coding, but the design's all mine. Lucas took the little robot in hand, studying it closely. It was surprisingly intricate for a student project, complete with tiny motion detectors and a miniature solar panel. This is impressive, he said, pride evident in his voice. Have you thought about increasing the solar efficiency? Actually, Elijah began, animated, but Madeline gently cut in. After breakfast, love, you still need to eat before school. The three of them moved into the kitchen, where Janelle had set out a hearty breakfast. It was a far cry from the quiet, lonely breakfasts Lucas once had in the top-floor dining room of Hartley International. How's the article on early childhood STEM programs coming? Lucas asked Madeline as he poured juice into Elijah's glass. Almost done, she said, spreading jam on toast. But I didn't just bring Elijah today. We need to talk about his birthday. Lucas paused for a second. Elijah's 9th birthday was just 2 weeks away, and this year he was determined to make it unforgettable. I know, Elijah said through a mouthful of pancake. We could have it at the observatory. Dr. Singh said he could give a private tour. That's a fantastic idea, Madeline said, smiling. What do you think, Lucas? I think it's perfect, Lucas replied, already mentally planning how to make it truly memorable. And actually, I've got a surprise that might go perfectly with that. Elijah straightened up, eyes shining. What kind of surprise? Well, if I tell you, it won't be a surprise anymore, will it? Lucas said with a wink. But trust me, you're going to love it. After breakfast, while Elijah went to brush his teeth before school, Madeline took the quiet moment to speak softly. You're doing great, she said. Elijah talks about you constantly. Really? Lucas felt his chest tighten in a good way. Yes, last night he asked if he could stay over here sometime. A lump rose in Lucas's throat. And what did you say? I said, I think it's time, she replied. But we'll ease into it, maybe after his birthday. Madeline, Lucas hesitated, searching for the right words. I know I'm still figuring this out. I've made more mistakes than I care to admit, but I want to be there for real. Not just at breakfast or every other weekend. Madeline looked at him thoughtfully, silent for a moment. Is that why you moved to Palo Alto? Partly, he said honestly. Then he met her eyes. The other part was you. The stillness that followed hung in the air, fragile and full of unspoken weight. Ready, Elijah called from the hallway, bounding back into the kitchen. Can we go now? Of course, sweetie, Madeline said, gently pulling her gaze away from Lucas. Dad's coming with us to school today, right? Can I? Elijah asked eagerly. Always, Lucas smiled, grabbing his car keys. On the ride to school, Elijah spoke non-stop about his latest coding updates, his baseball team, and the upcoming observatory birthday party. Lucas listened intently, amazed at how curious and energetic his son was. "And after the party, can we look at Jupiter's moons through my telescope again?" Elijah asked, practically bouncing in his seat. "Of course," Lucas said. Then, exchanging a glance with Madeline, who gave a subtle nod, he added, "Actually, how about we go camping this weekend? I know a perfect place for stargazing." Elijah's eyes widened. "Really? Can I bring the telescope and everything?" "Any gear you want." "Mom, will you come too?" he asked, turning toward her. Madeline hesitated. "I'm not sure, sweetheart. I've got that piece due for publication." "Please," Elijah pleaded. "It'll be way better if we all go." Lucas kept his eyes on the road, but his heart pounded. The thought of spending an entire weekend with both of them, just the three of them, was exciting and a little terrifying. Madeline finally gave a soft smile. "Okay, but only if you finish all your schoolwork first." "I promise," Elijah said, grinning from ear to ear. When they reached the school, he hugged them both tightly before racing off toward the front entrance. Lucas and Madeline stood side by side, watching until he disappeared inside. "He looks happy," Lucas said quietly. "He is," Madeline replied, "happier than I've seen him in years." Lucas turned to her. "And you?" She held his gaze. "I'm happy too, Lucas. Happy that Elijah finally has the father he always wished for," Madeline said softly. "And I'm happy to see how hard you're trying to really be present in his life." Lucas looked at her, his voice quieter. "And what about us?" The question lingered, tentative, filled with weight and possibility. "Madeline, I'm not asking for anything now," he added quickly. I want you to know. What happened that night 9 years ago, it wasn't casual for me." "It wasn't for me either," she said, her voice low. "But a lot has happened since then." "I know, and I know I have to prove I've changed, not just for Elijah, but for you too." She gave a faint, bittersweet smile. "Let's keep our focus on Elijah for now, okay? As for the rest, we'll see where time takes us." Lucas nodded, accepting that, hopeful but grounded. As they walked back toward the car, he thought about how much his life had transformed. The man who once obsessed over quarterly profits now spent his mornings learning about robotics and stars from a 9-year-old. The executive who once measured success by acquisitions now found his greatest return in his son's joy. Back in his home office, Janelle was updating his calendar. The board was pleased with the leadership transition. "Stocks up 2% since the announcement," she said. "Also, 3 different conferences have invited you to speak about your journey from corporate life to parenthood." "Decline them," Lucas said, easing into his chair. "My current focus is preparing for a very important camping trip." Janelle grinned and noted it. "Should I pull up the best-rated family camping gear?" "Please." "And Janelle, one more thing." "Yes? Find the best astronomy educator in the area. I want to know everything about constellations before the weekend." Janelle nodded and stepped out to begin making arrangements. Lucas turned toward one of Elijah's drawings pinned to the wall, a detailed illustration of a planetary rover complete with annotations. His son was brilliant, inquisitive, and full of imagination. And for the first time in his life, Lucas realized his dream had never been about boardrooms or billion-dollar ventures. It was always about this: connection, meaning, love. Throughout the week leading up to their camping trip, Lucas dove into a private crash course in astronomy. Dr. Naomi Suresh, a prominent astrophysicist from the Stanford Institute for Space Science, spent several evenings tutoring him on constellations, planetary orbits, and night sky navigation. "Mr. Hartley," she said one evening, watching him work through a sky chart, "you're learning faster than most grad students I've taught." Lucas smiled. "My son knows every star by name. I want to see the sky the way he does. I want to speak his language." By Friday afternoon, Lucas was loading up their new SUV, something far more suited for tents and telescopes than his former luxury coupe. As he zipped up the last bag, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Rebecca. "I caught your Bloomberg interview. You looked happy. I hope you found what you were searching for." He stared at the message quietly for a while. Then he typed, "I found something I didn't even know I was missing." He placed the phone down, fastened Elijah's telescope securely, and smiled. This was just the beginning. Didn't even know I was looking for, he finished typing. I hope you find your happiness too, Rebecca. At exactly 4 p.m., Madeline and Elijah arrived as planned. Elijah was practically bouncing with excitement, clutching his favorite telescope and a backpack stuffed with astronomy books. Dad, you won't believe it. There's going to be a meteor shower this weekend. The Perseids, Lucas said confidently, showing off his newly acquired knowledge. It happens every year between July and August, when Earth passes through the debris trail of Comet Swift-Tuttle. Elijah stared at him, wide-eyed. How do you know that? Let's just say your dad's been hitting the books, Madeline said with a soft smile. The drive to their campsite, a secluded spot in Northern California known for its pitch-dark skies, was filled with laughter and non-stop chatter. They talked about constellations, Elijah's latest school adventures, and stopped now and then to take pictures of redwood forests and open valleys. Did you know this is one of the best places on the West Coast for stargazing? Elijah explained as they set up camp. The light pollution level is like almost zero. Really? Lucas replied, pretending to be surprised, sneaking a wink at Madeline. He had spent hours narrowing down this exact spot. When night fell, they gathered around a small campfire, roasting marshmallows and trading stories. Elijah, bursting with curiosity, asked about how his parents met back at Stanford. Your mom, Lucas said, eyes fixed on the firelight, was the sharpest voice in the journalism department. I first saw her in the library, completely buried in books about ethics and investigative reporting. And your dad, Madeline added with a grin, was the overconfident business major who thought he had the world figured out. And I did, Lucas said with a laugh. I just didn't realize I was focused on all the wrong things. The fire crackled, filling the quiet moment that followed. Lucas stared into the flames a moment longer, the laughter echoing in his ears like something fragile. It was perfect. Too perfect. And in that perfection he felt a twist of dread. He couldn't shake the thought that no matter how much he gave now, the time he'd lost could never be returned. 8 years of bedtime stories, school projects, inside jokes, gone. What if one day Elijah asked the one question he wasn't ready for? Why weren't you there? Elijah, locked in on his telescope, didn't notice the look exchanged between his parents. Dad, come quick, you can totally see Saturn's rings. Lucas got up, grateful for the shift in energy. As he leaned in to get a better view through the lens, he noticed Madeline step up beside him. The scent of her perfume, mixed with pinewood smoke and cool night air, made something stir in his chest. You really have changed, she whispered. I had to, he replied just as softly. For him, for you, for me. The rest of the night unfolded in a mix of laughter and awe. Elijah pointing out constellations, Lucas impressing him with his newly acquired astronomy knowledge, and Madeline capturing every moment with her camera. When the meteor shower began, the three of them lay together on a blanket, eyes fixed on the shimmering sky above. Make a wish, Elijah shouted with each streak of light. But Lucas didn't need to. Everything he had ever wished for was right there. Under the star-filled California sky, his brilliant, curious son, and the woman he had never truly stopped loving, along with a kind of peace no fortune had ever been able to bring him. Autumn in Palo Alto painted the Stanford campus in shades of amber and gold. Lucas walked the familiar paths, not as the once-driven undergrad, nor as the billionaire entrepreneur, but as the proud father of one of the youngest students ever admitted to the robotics mentorship program. Mr. Hartley, Dr. Singh greeted him at the entrance of the engineering lab. Elijah's just putting the final touches on his presentation. He's insisted we don't reveal anything until now. It was the day of the Stanford Youth Science Expo, a highly selective showcase that almost never featured participants Elijah's age. But his passion and talent had earned him a special place among high school seniors and college freshmen. Dad, Mom, Elijah came running up, wearing a lab coat that barely fit him anymore. He had grown taller in just a few short months, and his face now reflected a perfect blend of both Lucas and Madeline. Come see. Madeline, who had just arrived with her DSLR slung over her shoulder, smiled at her son's enthusiasm. I've been waiting all week to see the surprise you've been hiding from us. Elijah led them through the lab toward a designated presentation zone. At the center stood a large object draped with a canvas sheet. With a proud flourish, he yanked it off, revealing something that made both Lucas and Madeline freeze in awe. It was a sophisticated robotic system built around a fully automated telescope. Multiple monitors displayed real-time astronomical data, stellar coordinates, atmospheric tracking, and celestial object logs. "It's an autonomous sky mapping observation system," Elijah explained, beaming. "It fuses robotics and astronomy. The telescope self-adjusts for Earth's rotation and environmental variables. I even wrote code so it can identify and track constellations and planets in real time." Lucas felt a surge of emotion. His son hadn't just merged his passions, he had invented something innovative and truly advanced. "Dr. Singh," Elijah called out eagerly, "can I tell them now?" The professor gave a warm nod. "Go ahead, Elijah." Elijah bounced slightly on his toes. "Stanford's research lab wants to file a patent for my design, and they invited me to join a junior development team for further prototyping." Madeline pulled him into a tight hug, tears shining in her eyes. "Sweetheart, that's amazing. I'm so proud of you." Lucas stood there in quiet awe, the moment weighing on him. His 9-year-old son had accomplished what many researchers only dream about. But beyond the innovation, it was Elijah's uncontainable joy. The light in his eyes, the way he looked at both of them, knowing they were present and proud. In that instant, Lucas understood. This was success. Not the IPOs, not the speaking circuits, not the private jets. It was watching his son flourish. It was being present for each milestone. It was finally understanding what legacy was truly about. And as Lucas reached out to take his son's hand, he turned toward Madeline. She smiled, gently, sincerely, full of something quiet and unspoken. Together, they turned to watch Elijah passionately explain his invention to a group of intrigued researchers. And Lucas Hartley knew, with complete clarity, this was the beginning of something extraordinary. It was Elijah's heart and perseverance that touched Lucas the most. "There's one more thing," Elijah said, his tone turning earnest. He pointed toward a small plaque mounted at the base of his telescope system. "For my dad, who showed me it's never too late to make things right. And my mom, who always believed in me. With love, Elijah Reed Hartley." The use of the combined surname Reed Hartley, which Elijah had recently started using, caught Lucas off guard. "Elijah," Lucas began, his voice catching. But before he could continue, movement at the entrance of the lab drew attention. Rebecca Sterling, composed and striking in a tailored navy pantsuit, entered the room. The chatter lowered to a murmur, but she offered a poised smile and stood back, not intruding. "I came to see the exhibition," she said calmly. "The Sterling Foundation is one of the event's primary sponsors after all." Then her eyes found Elijah. It was watching his son flourish. It was being present for each milestone. It was finally understanding what legacy was truly about. And as Lucas reached out to take his son's hand, he turned toward Madeline. She smiled, gently, sincerely, full of something quiet and unspoken. Together, they turned to watch Elijah passionately explain his invention to a group of intrigued researchers. And Lucas Hartley knew, with complete clarity, this was the beginning of something extraordinary. It was Elijah's heart and perseverance that touched Lucas the most. "There's one more thing," Elijah said, his tone turning earnest. He pointed toward a small plaque mounted at the base of his telescope system. "For my dad, who showed me it's never too late to make things right, and my mom, who always believed in me. With love, Elijah Reed Hartley." The use of the combined surname Reed Hartley, which Elijah had recently started using, caught Lucas off guard. "Elijah," Lucas began, his voice catching. But before he could continue, movement at the entrance of the lab drew attention. Rebecca Sterling, composed and striking in a tailored navy pantsuit, entered the room. The chatter lowered to a murmur. But she offered a poised smile and stood back, not intruding. "I came to see the exhibition," she said calmly. "The Sterling Foundation is one of the event's primary sponsors after all." Then her eyes found Elijah. "You must be the young innovator everyone's buzzing about." Elijah, ever respectful, stepped forward and offered a handshake. "Elijah Reed Hartley, it's a pleasure to meet you, Miss Sterling." Rebecca's smile softened into something more sincere. "The pleasure's mine, Elijah. Your project is truly outstanding." She turned to Lucas and Madeline. "You must be incredibly proud." "We are," Madeline replied warmly, her hand naturally finding Lucas's. Rebecca caught the gesture and gave a subtle, acknowledging nod. "Well, she said after a moment. "I just wanted to personally congratulate you and inform you that the Sterling Foundation would like to offer a research grant to support further development of Elijah's system." Elijah's eyes lit up. "Really?" "Absolutely. Talent like yours should be cultivated, no matter the circumstances." With that, she gave them a final smile and exited the lab, gracefully and somehow lighter than when she'd arrived. "That was unexpected," Lucas said quietly. "It was gracious," Madeline added. The remainder of the afternoon unfolded quickly. Presentations, interviews with local science journalists, and thoughtful questions from professors. Elijah thrived in every conversation, balancing technical insight with the joy of a child doing what he loves most. When the event finally wrapped up, the three of them decided to celebrate over dinner at a quaint Italian restaurant, one Lucas and Madeline used to visit during their Stanford years. "They still have that truffle ravioli you used to love?" Lucas said as they settled into a quiet booth near the back of the restaurant. "You remember that?" Madeline asked, caught off guard. "I remember everything," he answered simply. Elijah, engrossed in the kids' menu, didn't seem to notice the emotional moment shared between his parents. "Can I get the pepperoni flatbread?" "Of course, honey," Madeline replied with a warm smile. "This day is all yours." As they waited for their food, as they ate, Elijah talked excitedly about the scientists he had met at the expo and all the ways he wanted to upgrade his invention. Lucas and Madeline exchanged proud glances, their fingers brushing lightly now and then across the table. "You know," Elijah said suddenly, a little more serious now, "I have one more surprise." He pulled a folded piece of paper from his jacket pocket and handed it to them. Inside was a crayon drawing, 3 stick figures, one tall, one medium, and one small, standing in front of a house. "It's that house we saw in Palo Alto last week. Remember, Dad? The one with the big backyard, so we could build a backyard observatory." He hesitated, glancing between them. "I thought, well, now that you two are basically dating again." Lucas and Madeline exchanged stunned looks. They had tried to be discreet, meeting only after Elijah had gone to bed, keeping their interactions subtle. "How did you?" Madeline started to ask. Elijah gave an eye roll that was pure 9-year-old. "Mom, you've been wearing your favorite vanilla perfume way more lately. And Dad, you smile every time she texts. I'm not a little kid, you know." Lucas couldn't hold back a laugh. His son really was remarkably sharp. "And, would you be okay with that?" Lucas asked. "Obviously," Elijah replied. "Why do you think I've been accidentally leaving you two alone after dinner? Or always asking both of you to take me places?" Madeline covered her mouth, laughing through the tears in her eyes. "Oh my God, we've been totally played by a 9-year-old. "Almost 10, Elijah corrected proudly. "And I wouldn't call it manipulation, it's strategic facilitation." "Been sneaking into my leadership books?" Lucas asked with a grin. "Actually," Elijah smirked. "Grandma Rose taught me. She said you two are way too stubborn to figure it out yourselves." Madeline's mother, who had recently come around to supporting Lucas again, had clearly been pulling a few strings behind the scenes. "Elijah," Madeline began, her voice soft, "grown-up relationships can be messy." "They don't have to be," Elijah said simply. "You guys love each other, always have. Why make it complicated?" The silence that followed was gently broken by the arrival of their food. Pepperoni flatbread for Elijah, truffle ravioli for Madeline, and seafood linguine for Lucas. For a while, the only sounds were the quiet clinking of silverware and soft background music. Then Lucas spoke. "The house," he said, "the one in your drawing, I already put in an offer." Madeline and Elijah froze mid-bite. "You did what?" Madeline asked softly. "It was right after the camping trip," Lucas said, slowly swirling the wine in his glass. "I realized I didn't want high-rise condos or glass towers anymore. I wanted a backyard where Elijah could run around. Space for that observatory he's always imagined." Then he looked straight at Madeline. "And enough bedrooms for a growing family." Elijah nearly jumped out of his seat. Yes, can we move in this weekend?" Madeline blinked, holding back tears of joy. "Lucas, you don't have to decide anything now," he said gently. "Just know, it's not about starting over. It's about creating something real, something lasting." But even as he spoke, Lucas felt the tremor beneath his confidence, something unspoken, fragile. He had made empires bend at will, negotiated billion-dollar mergers, but this, This felt far more uncertain. What if he was rushing? What if Elijah got used to a life he couldn't sustain? Or worse, if Madeline said no? Beneath the flicker of candlelight, his grip on the wineglass tightened just slightly. For the first time in weeks, he feared he might be hoping too much. And hope, he knew, was dangerous. She reached across the table and took his hand, her smile saying everything he needed to hear. And in that quiet Italian bistro, wrapped in laughter, warm food, and the gentle glow of second chances, they found home. "So, does this mean we're all gonna live together?" Elijah asked, his eyes shining with hope. "Easy there, buddy," Lucas laughed. "First, we have to see what your mom thinks." Madeline fidgeted with the corner of her napkin, her fingers trembling just slightly. "Lucas, that's a really big step." "I know," he said quietly. "And I'm not pushing. The house, it'll be mine to start. A place where Elijah has his own room. A space where he can build and grow." He paused, then added even more softly, "But maybe it could be more, a place where we slowly build something together, in our own time." "The yard has an apple tree," Elijah chimed in hopefully. "Like the one Grandma Rose had in her garden. Remember, Mom?" Madeline smiled. The apple tree in her mother's yard had been her refuge during pregnancy, a quiet place where she often sat, feeling the world slow down around her. "And there's a perfect little office for you," Lucas added, overlooking the garden. "Ideal for your writing." She looked from father to son, squinting with playful suspicion. "You two coordinated this, didn't you?" "Technically," Elijah grinned. "It was Dad's idea. I just helped choose which room would be my lab." At that moment, the waiter arrived with a small dessert, a tiramisu, Madeline's favorite, back in her Stanford days. But this one was special. Written in dark chocolate on the dusted top were two simple words: "Marry me." Madeline's eyes instantly welled up as Lucas dropped to one knee beside her chair, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. 15 years ago, I made the worst decision of my life, choosing success over love. 8 years ago, fate gave me another chance, and I almost missed it again." He opened the box, revealing a delicate sapphire ring, her favorite. Not a flashy diamond, but something meaningful. Thoughtful. "But now I know. I want to start every day by your side. I want to watch Elijah grow up in a house full of love, discovery, and laughter. I want to build his backyard observatory and spend our nights looking at the stars together." Yes," Madeline cut in, her voice choked with joy. "Yes, Lucas." "I hadn't finished my speech," Lucas teased, his voice cracking slightly. "You don't need to be," she whispered, pulling him into a kiss. The entire restaurant broke into applause. Elijah jumped out of his seat and wrapped his arms around both of them. "Finally!" Suddenly, camera flashes lit up through the windows. Reporters had followed them from the Science Expo and caught the proposal. "Oh no," Madeline murmured, glancing around in surprise. Lucas gently placed a hand on her cheek. "Don't worry about them. Tonight is just for us. We're famous now," Elijah shouted proudly. "Famous, family Collins greedy." Laughter filled the restaurant. Later that night, after dropping Elijah off at his grandparents', who, as it turned out, already knew about the proposal, Lucas and Madeline took a slow walk through the Stanford campus. "Look," Madeline said, pointing at the old research library. "That's where you used to study, just to sit nearby me." Lucas chuckled. "I wasn't pretending. I just knew where I belonged." They strolled hand in hand through the quiet, tree-lined paths, surrounded by a calm breeze, their past reconciled and the future finally within reach. And as the stars shimmered to life above them, clear, steady, full of new beginnings, they both knew they were home. "See that bench?" Lucas said, pointing ahead. Madeline nodded. "That's where you told me you loved me." "And that lab," she added with a smile, "where we had our first kiss." Lucas stopped and gently pulled her close. "You know what else happened on this campus?" "What?" "It's where I made a promise to myself just a few months ago, that I would get it right this time. That I'd be the man you and Elijah deserve." Madeline rested her head against his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. "You already are," she whispered. "Lucas, you've changed so much. For you," he said quietly, "and for Elijah. And I'll keep growing, because now I finally know what really matters." Madeline's phone buzzed. It was a message from Elijah, with several photos already making the rounds online. The last image showed the three of them in a tight embrace, smiling beneath the headline, "Former Tech CEO Finds True Wealth in Rediscovered Family." Lucas let out a small laugh. Well, it's about time they got the story right. The house in Cambridge looked like something out of a storybook on that crisp spring morning. The backyard, now transformed into a blooming garden, was the perfect setting for an intimate wedding. The old apple tree, blanketed in soft white blossoms, stood as their natural altar. Paper lanterns swayed gently from the branches, waiting for dusk to fall. Elijah, now officially 10, tugged at his mini tuxedo for the 10th time. As the ring bearer, he was determined to get everything perfect. "Dad?" he called, stepping into Lucas's home office while he was getting dressed. "Grandma Rose says Mom's almost ready. Oh, and the people from the observatory just got here." The observatory, Lucas's wedding gift to the family, had been completed the week before. A sleek modern dome at the edge of the garden, fully equipped with a high-powered telescope, and, naturally, Elijah's newly enhanced automated astronomical observation system version 2.0. "How does she look?" Lucas asked, still fumbling with his bow tie. "Beautiful," Elijah grinned. "And nervous." "Just like you." Lucas chuckled. His son always had a knack for reading people better than most adults. "Can you give me a hand with this?" he asked, nodding toward the crooked tie. Elijah stepped forward, carefully adjusting it with practiced ease, thanks to many hours of YouTube tutorials. "There. Now you look like a proper groom, not some tech guy trying to pass as romantic." "Hey," Lucas joked, "I thought I was getting better at this." "You are," Elijah said with a smirk, "but you still have that executive mode look sometimes." Upstairs, Madeline stood quietly in front of the mirror in the primary bedroom. Her wedding dress was simple and timeless, elegant silk with delicate lacework. It was nothing like the grand, flashy gown she once imagined for a different future. This wasn't about putting on a show. This was about love, commitment, family, and most of all, it felt like her sweetheart. Rose, her mother, entered the room softly. "It's time." "Mom," Madeline said, taking her hands, "thank you for everything, for standing by me through the hardest days, for helping me raise Elijah, and for always believing this day would come." Rose smiled warmly, brushing a loose strand of hair from her daughter's face. "How does she look?" Lucas asked, still fumbling with his bow tie. "Beautiful," Elijah grinned. "And nervous, just like you." Lucas chuckled. His son always had a knack for reading people better than most adults. "Can you give me a hand with this?" he asked, nodding toward the crooked tie. Elijah stepped forward, carefully adjusting it with practiced ease, thanks to many hours of YouTube tutorials. "There. Now you look like a proper groom, not some tech guy trying to pass as romantic." "Hey," Lucas joked, "I thought I was getting better at this." "You are," Elijah said with a smirk, "but you still have that executive mode look sometimes." Upstairs, Madeline stood quietly in front of the mirror in the primary bedroom. Her wedding dress was simple and timeless, elegant silk with delicate lacework. It was nothing like the grand, flashy gown she once imagined for a different future. This wasn't about putting on a show. This was about love, commitment, family, and most of all, it felt like her. Yet, as she adjusted the lace at her shoulder, her hands paused. Was she doing the right thing for Elijah? He had grown up with structure, predictability, just her and his grandparents. Would this new life, with all its changes, overwhelm him? Madeline inhaled slowly, willing herself to be still. She had dreamed of this day, yes, but now that it was here, fear crept in through the cracks of her confidence. Not about Lucas, but about herself. Could she be enough, as a partner, as a wife again, not just a mother doing her best? The mirror gave no answer, only her own uncertain reflection staring back. "Sweetheart," Rose, her mother, entered the room softly. "It's time." "Mom," Madeline said, taking her hands, "thank you for everything, for standing by me through the hardest days, for helping me raise Elijah, and for always believing this day would come." Rose smiled warmly, brushing a loose strand of hair from her daughter's face to her face. "I always knew Lucas would come back," Rose said quietly. "He just needed time to grow up and to figure out what truly mattered." "How did you know?" Madeline asked. "Because," Rose replied with a soft smile, "he always looked at you the same way your father still looks at me, even after 4 decades together." A gentle knock came at the door. It was Meredith, no longer just Lucas's assistant, but now a trusted friend to the whole family. "Sorry to interrupt," she said warmly, "but someone's here to see the bride." To Madeline's surprise, Evelyn Whitaker stepped into the room, graceful in a deep blue dress. "Evelyn? I didn't expect." "I know," Evelyn said softly, "but I wanted to be here, today of all days." She handed Madeline a small velvet box. "It's a gift for Elijah." Inside was a golden key. "It's symbolic," Evelyn explained. "The Whitaker Foundation is launching an astrophysics research initiative at Stanford. We'd like Elijah to be our inaugural junior research fellow." Tears welled in Madeline's eyes. "Evelyn, I don't know what to say." "It's the least I can do," Evelyn replied. "That boy has something rare, and he reminded me that some things are more important than history." The two women embraced, and just like that, years of tension dissolved in one genuine moment. Outside, around 50 guests, close friends and family, began taking their seats in the garden beneath the blooming apple tree. Dr. Harris stood at the altar, ready to officiate the intimate ceremony. "Lucas, when we met, we were just two ambitious students with big dreams. Life took us in different directions, and maybe that time apart was necessary for us to grow into who we are now. You're no longer the CEO chasing power, and I'm not the idealistic journalism major I used to be." She gave a soft smile. "We're stronger now, wiser, shaped by everything we've been through." "At the stars," Elijah continued, "and made 3 wishes every night. 1, that my dad would find me. 2, that he and my mom would realize they still loved each other. And 3, that we'd become a real family." He looked upward at the glittering night sky, eyes shining. I guess the stars finally listened. The celebration carried on into the evening, filled with quiet moments that glowed with joy. Evelyn and Madeline sat together on a garden bench, their laughter soft as they spoke about Elijah's upcoming research opportunity and how it might change his future. Across the yard, Lucas and Dr. Martinez talked excitedly about bringing Elijah's observation system to other schools, sharing inspiration with more curious young minds. Rose, seated at the patio table with a cup of tea in hand, smiled as she watched the party unfold around her. "Probably when I realized I had the best parents in the world," Elijah said with a cheeky grin. "Even if it took you both a while to figure it out." Lucas chuckled, shaking his head. "You know, son," he said warmly, "even the brightest minds can be slow to learn the most important lessons." As the night came to a close, the 3 of them lay side by side on the grass, eyes fixed on the stars, some part of Elijah's custom projections, others part of the real sky above. The apple tree above them swayed gently, strung with lanterns that cast a soft, magical glow. "So," Elijah asked, breaking the calm, "are you ever going to tell me where you're going for the honeymoon?" Lucas and Madeline exchanged playful looks. "How did you know?" Elijah asked, surprised. Elijah rolled his eyes. "Come on, you think I didn't spot the tickets to the Galapagos Islands on Dad's laptop? And there are 3 tickets, not 2. "We wanted it to be a surprise," Madeline explained. "And it was," Elijah said with a grin. "It's just, I pay attention. Plus, I've been begging to go to the Galapagos ever since we started studying Darwin." Lucas ruffled his hair. "You're impossible to surprise." "Not totally," Elijah replied. "You both surprised me today. This was the best day of my life." "Ours too, son," Madeline whispered, holding Lucas's hand tightly. "Ours too." Above them, a single shooting star arced across the sky, and for the first time in years, none of them had to make a wish. Everything they'd ever dreamed of was already here, under the stars, in the heart of Cambridge, wrapped in love. 8 years later, the auditorium at MIT was filled to the brim, pulsing with anticipation. It was the graduation ceremony for Elijah Collins Greedy, just 18 years old, the youngest dual-degree graduate in the school's history. Robotics, engineering, and astrophysics. NASA and the European Southern Observatory had both made offers. In the front row, Lucas and Madeline sat proudly, hands clasped. Next to them, 2 7-year-old girls, Claire and Lila, wore matching t-shirts that read, "Our big brother is a space genius." Elijah stepped up to the podium, straightening his cap as the room fell into an expectant hush. "When I was 10, Elijah began, I gave my first presentation in this very auditorium. It was a project about astronomy and robotics, driven by my curiosity about the universe." He paused, his eyes finding his family in the crowd. "But what I didn't understand back then was that the greatest discovery I'd ever make wouldn't come from space or science. It would come from love, from family." Lucas squeezed Madeline's hand, the memory of that life-changing day years ago washing over them both. On stage, Elijah continued. My automated astronomical observation system, what started as a middle school project, has since been adopted in observatories across the globe. But its real mission wasn't just about data collection. It was about connection. He smiled down at his parents. That project helped reunite the family I never stopped dreaming about. And today we continue to grow, learn, and reach for the stars, together. Applause erupted through the auditorium. Lucas, Madeline, and the girls stood beaming with pride. In that moment, they knew the stars had always been aligned, just waiting for their time to shine. Scientific, Elijah added, but it was also deeply personal. It connected people, like constellations drawn between those who share a wonder for the sky, and it connected my family. In the audience, Dr. Blackwood smiled warmly. Karen Danworth, now a leading advocate for youth STEM education, applauded sincerely. Even Bernard and Rachel, ever present in their lives, were there for this milestone. After the ceremony, the family gathered at the backyard observatory, now fully modernized, but still full of memories. Claire and Lila twirled in their matching dresses, pretending to guide interstellar missions. Watching them, Lucas turned to Elijah. So, have you decided which offer you're going to accept? Elijah grinned and pulled a folded envelope from inside his robe. Would you like me to continue from here? I've got a third option, Elijah said playfully. Remember that trip to the Galapagos, right after your wedding? How could we forget? Madeline laughed. That's where you said you wanted to combine marine biology with astronomy. Well, Elijah opened the envelope. Inside were official documents. I just got approval to launch the world's first fully automated underwater observatory in the Galapagos, a project that will merge deep-sea exploration with celestial observation. Lucas blinked in awe. Elijah, that's incredible. There's more, Elijah added with a twinkle in his eye. Guess who's funding it? The Danforth Foundation, Madeline guessed. Even better, Elijah said proudly. L. Pierce Global, under new management, wants to create a scientific research division, and they asked me to lead it. Lucas felt his chest tighten with emotion. The company he had founded, once a monument to ambition and wealth, was now becoming something truly impactful under his son's vision. Claire tugged on Elijah's sleeve. Can we see the turtles again? And the dolphins? Lila added eagerly. Elijah smiled at them. Of course, you're my official research assistants now. Someone needs to document all our discoveries. The girls squealed in delight, already dreaming of adventures to come. That night, beneath a sky full of stars, the Collins-Pierce family celebrated not just a graduation, but the beginning of a new legacy. They raised their glasses to the future, to family, and to the boundless possibilities waiting in the cosmos. All right, my dear friends. So the story has come to a close, and if you're still here, listening, reading, breathing in these last few lines with me, then something, even the smallest thread, must have touched your heart in a way words often fail to explain. Maybe it was a moment, maybe a glance, a second chance, or the quiet ache of time lost but not wasted. Whatever it was, it mattered. And now, let's take a breath together. This wasn't just a story about love. It was a story about choice, about forgiveness, about returning to the places we once ran from, only to find they still hold the key to who we are. Lucas didn't need to be perfect. Madeline didn't need to have all the answers. And Elijah? He was never waiting for a flawless parent. He was waiting for someone who chose to show up. You see, the Stoics believed that we must learn to love fate. Amor fati, not because life is always kind, but because healing starts when we stop running from what has shaped us. As Marcus Aurelius once wrote, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Lucas's pain, his absence, his fear, they weren't the end. They were the beginning of showing up, of choosing family, of building something real. So my friend, if this story whispered something to you, don't let it fade. Hold it, sit with it, let it remind you that it's never too late to rewrite the ending. And if this journey meant something to you, even in the smallest way, please like, share, or subscribe. Not for numbers, but so this story might find someone else sitting in silence, needing just one sentence to feel seen. We're glad you stayed, and we'll be right here every time you need to return.